Hi, this is Stephanie Fisher, the Crafty Thinker, and today I'm going to show you how I create a watercolor monochrome flower on colored cardstock using just one ink and a couple of markers. So far what I have done is stamp the image, as you can see here, with the blended bloom stamp. And I stamped it because I'm using Tangelo Twist, I think it is, paper. I stamped it in the Tangelo Twist ink, and then all I've done in preparation is to colour in, and not very accurately I have to say, with the, this is the black marker. Oops, that's not focusing, is it? It's a black Stampin' Right marker, and all I did was put in pretty much the suggestions of where the stamens are, because otherwise they'll get lost. I just find it helpful to be able to come back afterwards and pretty much know where they are. So that's all I've done so far in preparation, except that I've then decided which ink I'm going to use. And to do that, I've done a little strip of the same colour paper, and I've done tests. So this one here at the end was Tangelo Twist ink, this one is the Cajun Craze, and this one is Pumpkin Pie. And rather annoyingly, I decided I didn't really like what I had been doing with the Tangelo Twist. I preferred the Pumpkin Pie, but I do not have, it turns out, a Pumpkin Pie re-inker. So, well, I'll see how I go. But I'll definitely be using the Cajun Craze as my dark. It does work better if you choose your brush according to the space you're going to fill. So, for smaller spaces, I've got smaller points, and for bigger spaces, I can use a bigger brush. So I'm dipping my brush, you can't really see because I've got it off camera, into the water, and then I like to feel to see how much water is in there, and then bring this in a little bit, you can see, then I just dabble a little bit in here, and when I'm starting out I probably don't dabble too much in there, and as I want to go stronger then I'll pick up more ink on my brush. So I'm going to start where I want the ink the strongest, which is in the middle, because the middle of my flower is going to be darker, and I'm just going to draw it. I haven't got enough, so you can see, if I go in, you can see why I know I don't have enough water in there. It's left a kind of dry brush look, so I'll put a little bit more in. Some more ink, and again starting in the middle and pulling up from the middle, and again I think that's still a bit too dry. With this cardstock though, you have to it's a balancing act. You have to try not to get it too wet, because it's not designed to get wet. It's and it can easily degrade. So, but on the other hand, if it's not wet enough, you're not going to be able to smoothly put the ink over it. So, yeah, as I said, it's a balancing act. So now I'm not going to do a petal next to it. I'm going to, because I want that to dry a bit. I don't want, if you paint two wet areas next to each other, they're going to bleed into each other, and in this case I don't want that to bleed. So I'm coming over here and I'm adding some, that's mostly water and a little bit of the Cajun Craze. But the other difficulty with doing this method is you don't really know what's just wet and what's actually ink until you dry it. So there are a few problems with watercolouring onto the coloured cardstock, but we seem to get there in the end. So with this one I'm going to put a little bit more ink up here because this is a folded over piece of petal, so that's going to be a bit darker under there. And I'm doing it while the other ink is still wet so that it has a chance to bleed into each other. I'll put a little bit more under here. Now, most likely I'll be going over this again at some stage. So this is like a first draft, and then I can adjust it later. So I'm not going to do too much more with that one. And now I'll leave that one and I'll do this one. And again, there's a lip up there which I shall try and put some dark under. So the trick is to keep the brush moving so that you don't end up with firm lines as much as possible, unless you actually want those firm lines, but at the moment I don't. So I've made it damp. Now I've put a bit more ink on and I'm coming back where I want it the darkest, and I'm blending it up from where I want it the darkest. Now I'm just going to drop a bit under this fold over again. I'll probably make this bit here a bit. So you can tell as this one dries it's going to need a lot more work on it, and that's okay, we can do it in layers a bit at a time. It's best to do it a bit at a time rather than try and get it all perfect the first time, because it's really also a question of tone versus tone, so you need to kind of always be comparing what you want light, what you want dark, what you want mid. And sometimes you don't know exactly what, well I don't anyway because I'm not good enough at it, I don't know exactly what tone I'm going to want to use until I've got the neighbouring bits done. So this is all a bit rough at the moment because I know I'm going to come back and change it. So there's a bit more ink going in the middle here. And as I go, I can also get a better idea of how much ink I want to use to achieve the tones I'm looking for. Okay, so that's probably enough for now. And now we'll come into this one. Now this one at the back is going to be quite dark because it's behind this petal and it's also behind this petal. So those petals are going to be creating quite a bit of shade over the one that I'm now doing. So it's obviously going to be darker. So now I'm going to be quite firm with how much, putting quite a bit of ink in here, especially next to the petals on either side. So I'll just keep on in this way for a while. At the moment I'm not touching the bits that are folding over. I will come back to that later, and I'll do a bit more and then we'll talk again. So that's where we are now. We can go in now and do these, I don't know what they're really called, these little turnovers on the petals. So when you have a shape like that, it's going to have a little darker edge on the bit that's folding over and then get lighter. But I'm not going to put very much colour on them at all, it's just so that you can see that they're folding over. So it's probably going to have a little bit more colour in the centre of it. what we need to do now is dry that, because I'm concerned obviously about the way this looks in comparison. The first one always looks a bit different till I get the hang of things. But it could just be that this is dry and this isn't, so I need to take a look and see what it's like after it's all been dried. So I'll just go and use my heat tool. I'll be back in a minute. Okay, so now it's dry and I'm quite satisfied that this petal just looks different and not very good. So all that means is I just go in and touch it up a little bit. So I'm just doing a repeat of what I've done on all the other ones, and hopefully that will fix up whatever problem I caused myself here. So now we're going to have a look at this and see if what we need to define a bit more. We can, there are some edges like here where that's not really defined enough. So our first thing we'll do is we'll go in just with some more pigment on the brush and just do a line around things and see if that helps. So here I haven't put any more water on. I'm using a damp enough brush to be able to have flow with the ink, but I'm using a very inky brush. I want the strong pigment there. So I've been fairly systematic going around and looking at my tones, because that's to get that three-dimensional look. It really is just about looking at tones and contrasts. How dark does this need to be in relation to that, or in relation to that? That's all it is really. It's observation. Now I've left the centre bare because I'm going to just put some gold wink of Stella in the middle of this one. You can see I went over very, very roughly all the little lines in the middle with when I was doing the black marker on here, and that'll show through, I think it'll show through the gold wink of Stella. So I'm going to clean this brush, just in a few little places darken up with the black marker. Just a few of the lines here, just go over them. Again, it's very rough. And then what I'll do is I'll put a little daub of wink of Stella, gold wink of Stella, on some of the bits of these stamens to try and give some highlights as well to these, to give a bit more dimensionality to those. So that's pretty much all I'm going to do with that now. I might get the Cajun Craze marker and just put a bit more depth in a couple of places. So this is the Cajun Craze marker, and I'm using the fine end, the writing end. And I'm not doing like whole strokes, I'm almost like dabbing it in here, I suppose. Because I don't want to really outline things, I just want to define a few things. So this is the gold wink of Stella. And you can see those lines in the middle do show through. Now on these stamens, just in a few places where I think the light might be catching things, but I'm not going to get too technical about it. I'm just adding a little bit of the gold. You can see it just gives it that little bit of lift and dimension. That's it.